just a little bit, and my camera's right here in front of me.
So I appreciate you taking the time to do this interview. Something that I've been wanting to do for quite some time, especially what's happening right now in the world. I think there's a lot of social issues that need to be talked about, and this is one that is very dear to my heart because I have 2 kids, and to me, in my opinion, I feel it's overlooked, and we don't spend enough time talking about sex trafficking, and just the way the world is today with technology and a lot of predators out there. It's scary, actually. So tell me, Angelia Moses, correct?
Correct.
And then so funny because we met a year and a half ago
About a year.
to help put something in place about a year ago, and then you had mentioned that you had written a book, and that kind of sparked my interest, and so I wanted to kind of just have you tell your story, why you wrote the book, Polaris.
Polaris.
And you actually wrote 2 books now.
I have the second one, The Life, and I'm working on my third one right now, and they all deal with human trafficking. So
just explain a little. What kind of prompted you to decide to talk about this subject?
Well, it was social media. I started out with, I was looking at Facebook one day, and I happened to have a story, and I never could tell. I've heard some reports on hearing or seeing the story because it popped up a couple times, about a girl and her mom had gone to a mall here in North Texas. And so the daughter says, "Hey, I need to go to the restroom." Mom says, "Fine, I'm checking out. I'll just meet you at the car." And so mom made it out to the car, and she's sitting there waiting for a while, and the daughter never comes out. So mom decides to come back in, and by that time, she sees her daughter walking with 2 other women, as the story goes, and they said, "Oh, I'm sorry, she's sick. We're going to take her home." Well, mom knew it was wrong because mom was taking the girl home. So like I said, I don't know if that story was actually true or if it was just put out there to spark people's ideas of what's going on in this world. So that kind of bothered me. I seen it one time and I just went on, and then it happened to show up again probably a couple months later. And I thought, well, this is just kind of weird that this has popped up again.
Right.
So I got into looking a little bit further into just seeing some sites out there for human trafficking, just not really realizing how much of an impact or how much it was taking place. And I live in a pretty crowded North Texas area, and it's just surprising that I just never really heard anything. Now I know, you hear human trafficking or heard it every once in a while, and it's just kind of thrown out, but I don't know that people really could say, it's never discussed. It's pretty much shoved under the rug, and just and even in our schools, it's just not out there.
And why? Okay, and why do you think that is? Why do you think it's not discussed? Why aren't people? Because obviously kids are the future. Most people have kids. Why don't you think that people are uncomfortable talking about this?
Well, I've talked a little bit because I work in a school district. A lot of the times they don't say anything because they don't want to scare the kids. And some parents don't believe the school should be the one informing the kids about that. It should be a parent's job. It kind of came situation, school administrator said, think back to when It's Stranger Danger came out and people were stealing kids way back in the 80s, 90s. And they had to put it in a format that kids didn't really understand, but kind of knew to try to be safe. And, parents had your safe words if another kid or someone was supposed to be picking up your kid. But that's the extent of it, because they just don't want to scare the kids. And to me, I teach in a junior high, and they're aware of stuff like that. They just don't know what it is until they're done into it. So, or how it happens. So the schools just kind of keep a hands off because it's not per se their role to teach it.
Okay, so with that being said, then it's almost like until something happens to you, right, or to somebody that that's when people want to become proactive and get involved and you know, say this is, you know, this shouldn't happen and I want to do something about it. And my motto is always be proactive than reactive, right?
Right.
It's better to start talking about it now because, you know, technology is changing. It's changing from the way we grew up as kids, where we would, you know, play until the lights came on and stay out late, and you know, didn't really have. You can kind of almost keep the door open, so to speak. But now that's not the case in the world that we live in today. And it was crazy because I was just watching the series on Jeffrey Epstein, you know, just so I can have some more ammunition to talk about today. And you know, is a multi-billionaire that used his power to be able to take advantage of young girls,
Right.
to the point where, you know, once they finally pulled together and said, you know, this is not right, and all those women's lives were affected by it, you know, then his life ended tragedy. Um, so so to me, I'm like, well, there's a lot of stories like that. R. Kelly, you know, is another example. Again, somebody that has the power to influence people, and then can take advantage of these young girls by manipulating them and brainwashing them. Um, and then Harvey Weinstein and what happened with him and his power. And so to me, that's scary because, you know, again, I have a daughter, and you know, I just care about people. Um, to be taken advantage like that, it needs to be addressed.
I
And I think
think
that
a lot
people need to be more aware of it.
I think a lot of our enforcement, I mean, it's kind of a privacy right when kids are taken or are trafficked. And I can see to a degree on that, but they don't announce things to students on, hey, these are things to watch out for. Or a lot of times, hey, guys, these are schemes. How many times do we log into Facebook and you could say, hey, you hear your friend saying, hey, watch out for this. This is a scheme. We don't tell kids that so that they can be proactive on it, and I agree. I talked to one of our local police officers who happens to be an SRO officer at our school, and I asked him, I said, okay, I live in a small community. The population is like 3,000. Does that really even happen out in the small areas? And they happened to me, oh yeah, we had a case of just a couple years ago. And I'm like, wow, I didn't even know about it. And I've lived in that community for since probably 25, 30 years. I was like, well, nothing was ever brought out about it. And to me, people would want to know in that area that is taking place. It's just not talked about. It's like it's a taboo thing. You don't want to talk about it. I don't understand why we can't just give kids heads up of things to be smart, to make smart choices,
Right.
especially with the technology age going on.
Yeah, and well, I guess what's also alarming now is that they're not. It's not the predator that's actually recruiting the girls. It's the girls their age that are recruiting the girls. Also, so you know, you could have a friend that invites you to an event, and that may be the last time you see that person.
Right,
And then, you know, now once you get, you know, uh, once they get drugged or so forth, now they're hooked on drugs, and their whole life changed just like that. And
right,
so, as parents, I think it's important for us to kind of watch what we do as far as are we handing kids the phones for them, you know, to be in that position to be exposed. And then the way with all these apps now, the TikToks and the Instagrams and the Facebooks, you know, a smart predator could be able to communicate with our kids and take advantage of them without us knowing, right?
right, correct. And my book number 2, The Life, and that's basically what that story has evolved over. It's a best friend who it'd be someone that you would trust. They've already had that trust built, and she happens to get caught up and ends up starting to traffic her friends. And that's what that story is about. She happens to bring one of her best friends into the life, and uh, it's sad the way it has. And of course, you know, in my books, they always end up getting rescued, but unfortunately, a lot of them don't. You never hear from them again, or their life expectancy is so short after being put into to being trafficked.
Yeah, and that's my point. Is you don't really know what could be the outcome from being sexually molested or being drugged or something. You know, now you got depression, anxiety, suicidal thoughts. I mean, your life will never be the same. You
Right.
know, and if we go back to, you know, when our kids were running around and we was having fun, and you never in your wildest dreams would you thought, oh, my kid would have been trafficked, human trafficked at point, you know, at some point throughout their life. You know, I mean, it just, I mean, they make movies about it and then we watch it, but really this is real.
Yeah.
I think the numbers, if I'm not mistaken, this is $1 billion industry. Is that right?
Correct.
That's
Correct.
that's unheard of. This makes more money than like Amazon and these big companies.
Well, you know, when I ended up first getting into writing the book, and I was just talking to some friends, and hey, you know, I just got accepted for someone's publishing my book, and they're like, oh, well, that only happens over in like China or somewhere across the world. It doesn't happen very much in America, and it was really amazing to me that they had no clue. They may have heard of trafficking, but oh, we can't have that in America, and that's false. I mean, it happens all the time in America. Um, there are some videos that out there I watched. Ken Paxton, our Attorney General, he has some videos and a campaign out there for human trafficking. And just to watch it's about 54 minutes long to hear about a person here in Dallas or a person down in Houston or the aspect or perspective of a vice principal who has encountered trafficking. You know, there's just not areas that you'd imagine. And Texas is one of the higher states to having. I think it's second or third on the list of human trafficking in the United States. That's just unheard of. You just don't hear about it.
Wow. And you know, it's unfair to the kids because the kids look up to us as adult figures that they feel that they have that trust in. And then when you break that trust, then it's hard for you to say, do as I say, do this, do that now, because, you know, that's we failed them as adults.
Correct.
And not only as parents, but in programs as well. I mean, so I think there was one movie I was watching where I think it was a church that was um, um, hosting or having these girls, and then they basically sold her off to a sex trafficking. And luckily, you know, it was a good news that she came back. But the scary part was that she was in an environment where she felt safe, and then they they got sold her off to these traffickers, and then her whole life changed around. And I'm pretty sure that happens a lot,
That
especially.
does. And the next biggest one that just kind of surprised me, you know, because you just not imagine parents being the people who traffic their kids. Family trafficking has become very rampant in the United States as well. And to me, it's like, what? You mean your own offspring you would go through and sell? And unfortunately, it's taking place. And that's just sad. I just can't
I can't
imagine
imagine.
a parent wanting to go to that point of trafficking their kid. Um, and I don't know circumstances of why they would even want to do that. I just can't imagine and fathom how that would even come about, but it does.
Okay, but see, okay, so so being that said, um, that's something that needs to be addressed then. And you know, it's almost like instead of going after the people to kind of trap them to say, you know, act like you're a 12-year-old girl, and then you have a predator come and you know, friended you on Facebook and so forth. I think that needs to be done with the same with the parents.
Yeah.
Is, you know, put ads out there to say, hey, you know, something to where the parents, and then they need to be held accountable or go to jail for something like that, because now you're basically handing your kids over to the predator, or, you know, to the, and I if my parents would have did that to me, oh my goodness, or my sister, are you kidding me? That's
Yeah.
crazy.
I can't imagine it. And I know as teachers, I mean, we're one of the first groups to sit there and try to watch for it. But unfortunately, it is so kept secret. It is so hard to see. You figure that, oh, you're going to see a whole lot of signs coming from this kid. And a lot of times they're pretty good about being sneaky of covering it up. And it's sad that, you know, because kids have lost their respect for adults at that point, especially as a parent or, and I say teachers and police officers people out there that you just imagine to trust, I could see why it's hard. They don't want to speak up because those are people of authority. It's just, that's why it's so hard to be able to track once a student or a person, a child is in that. Because they just don't want to speak up because they've lost their authority figures to be able to know who to go trust.
Right. So, so here in the United States, do you know any numbers off the top of your head, or what that looks like, and how often it happens? And is there? I know there's probably negative numbers, and then I would imagine that there's probably positive numbers as far as rescues. But
Yes, you're correct. And it's changing daily. If one of the sites that's called Polaris Project, it was kind of funny because when I started writing it, I didn't have Polaris, that program set inside, but Polaris Project is the national, and I think they even deal with a lot of world stuff, but they're the national hotline for human trafficking. And they have a lot of statistics out there that they're constantly updating. One thing that, you always think of trafficking, in my perspective, I guess when I first got into it, it's only girls that are being trafficked. And unfortunately, it's not. Girls, boys, adults are being trafficked. And it's just amazing that's even taking place, because you would think, I know boys are underreported. That's why they always say, it's girls that are being trafficked, but boys are being trafficked just as much. It's just that in our society, we think that boys are, they should be strong enough to be able to stand up for themselves because they're the male persuasion, but that's not always the case. I mean, they're a kid too, just as much as a girl is. You would think an adult would be smart enough, not to get trafficked, but unfortunately, I can say it's a bullying type situation, but really it is. They put something over your head, and you end up having to you have to make choices in life, and it shouldn't be that way.
yeah, now, I mean, sometimes they're coming at their own will, so it doesn't necessarily have to be, I mean, from what I'm hearing, and maybe if I'm wrong, once they put something over your mouth, or they drug you, right, it's almost like, this, you're drugged a little bit, and then they're taking you out as almost like you were sick, and then put you into a van, and then that could be it. We could probably never see you again, right?
Well, that's just one way. I mean, you just anything that you can hold over a person. I mean, as far as a kid, a lot of times they just try to shame you, and just because as a human, they know how to manipulate you in order to have control over you. And when you feel like you've done something wrong and know something's not right, they know how to work that in order to have that control over you. I mean, it may not be money. It may be money. It may be a visa to get into the country. A lot of people are brought in through that, promising if you pay so much money, you can have a job here. I've seen some stuff that was floating around about trying to lure kids. Hey, you're a teenager. If you want a job, you can make $1,000 a week. Just come see me. And kids are lured into that because they want money to go spend on all of their cool things. It's sad on how you get lured in, and once you're entrapped, it's pretty much there. I mean, there are kids that once they're in it, or not, I can't say kids, but just once people are in it, there are some that just don't want to be rescued. The home life they're coming from was not a good home life, and the person that's trafficking them treats them better than their parents or their family did. So, I mean, it's sad that what's taking place and the choices that we have now.
So tell me about your book, and then we'll then talk about things that parents can do to be more mindful and maybe monitor, what's going on, as far as like going out to events and just not taking for granted that you always got to kind of be aware of your surroundings. But tell me about your book first, or your 3 books, sorry. I did read your book, so did my wife. We enjoyed it. My wife enjoyed it so much she thought it was real, actual. Like this really happened, and so tell me about the first book, Polaris, and how you came to write that one.
Well, again, Polaris takes off with the North Texas Mall. It starts out with that. The girl gets trafficked, basically drugged, thrown into a vehicle, put into an 18-wheeler, and sent down to southern Texas. In this, and she's in a back of a trailer with a bunch of other girls that are being trafficked. They end up showing up at a ranch of a predominant guy. He's well known in the community and liked, and of course he's got someone that's kind of lording some information or money over him. That's why he's gotten into doing it. This girl ends up having to try. Well, she's kind of almost given up in life, but she has her background. She is a Christian, and she's just kind of like, I'm ready to give up on this. But in the aspect, let's say God opens a door and she happens to escape. In my books, it does cover the human trafficking, but the one thing I wanted to put into my books that kind of have a little bit of a different twist to it is a lot of times we think, how could God even allow this to happen? And so it has a Christian storyline with it as well. We just don't imagine, and then, like I said, you hear people saying, how could God even allow this to happen? And unfortunately, we live in a fallen world, and he gave us a choice to make a choice of what we want to do. So God kind of, like I say, kind of opened the door for her, and she ends up escaping. So the second story goes along with the line of a girl happens to, she doesn't have a really good home life. Her family's going through, and they're getting ready to lose their house. Dad's lost his job. Mom works at home, and she meets up with this guy at a mall. And he ends up buying her a brand new car, and he's got an idea of what he wants to do, but he's lured her in. And her first deal happens to be to go meet up with her best friend. While they're driving around the block in her new car, the guy sitting in the back happens to drug the girl, and she's now into human trafficking thrown in.
Wow.
They're taking life things, or I guess I can't say it's not. I have never watched a certain story or a certain person. It just, there's a conglomeration, and just me kind of coming into trying to deal not only with the human trafficking, but maybe some things to think about. Maybe, it's not just because we think that God's not in control over this stuff.
Right.
Really, there's something in there. So in order to read out, the girls were like, there is a ultimate plan of what takes place, and I can't say that happens for everything. It's just to know that, hey, God's still there regardless of what you're facing right now, and you just have to make sure you find him. And it's very hard in that situation, because God is definitely not. You would not imagine God being in human trafficking at all. You would probably think the hardest part of it. As a Christian, one of the scriptures I ended up coming off with the first book was 1 Corinthians 13:12. It's talking about, we see things only in pieces. We don't see the whole picture of what God has in store. So that's one of kind of what I have going over. Right now, I'm working on my book 3. I don't have a title for it yet, but it's going to be a predominant person in the community who happens to be trafficking his stepson. And so it talks about family human trafficking. So.
Oh, wow. Well, that's good. I'm glad that that I was able to meet you, so you could kind of introduce this to me, because I know, like I said, I've seen stars, like I think Jada Smith and Will Smith kind of speak out on this, and there's other stars as well that have started voicing their opinions and said that obviously this is something we need to talk about, luckily it hasn't, and hopefully it doesn't happen in my circle of people that I know, but I don't want to wait for that to happen,
Right.
and then say, okay, let's go protest, or let's do this, let's do that. It's just starting to bring people's awareness of what's out there, and just not take things for granted. Unfortunately, we live in a crazy world. So
Right.
one thing that somebody had mentioned to me that I think could help is LifeLock. Are you familiarized with that company or that program?
Uh-huh.
Okay, and they said it is important that you do it now, because it protects not only their Social Security information as far as a lot of or people that could take their identity now and use their social security, but also I think it's a way to monitor where your kids are at and things like that. Is that right?
Well, I don't know as far as it monitors where you've been at on there, but it definitely does protect you. And your stuff can be held hostage, especially as an adult, through LifeLock, getting your social security numbers, your banking account information, and also they can still basically lock down your computer that has all your information on it and say, hey, if you want your access back to your computer, you have to pay me XYZ in order to get back into it. And I know that's what they deal more with the black web stuff. The one thing I want to add into that is there are programs out there, and I don't ever want a person to think that, hey, I've got this XYZ program loaded onto my phone or my kid's phone, and it's going to watch it. And that's what I see a lot of times taking place. But unfortunately, kids are pretty tech savvy, and they know how to work around situations. The other thing is traffickers are not stupid either. They're finding new ways to be able to get into new apps or develop new apps that are not automatically blocked. So I never want someone to get to a fail safe of thinking, hey, I'm blocked, I'm safe. We still need to always be on the watch out. Because just to know what's going on in technology today, especially going in through after we've done this COVID thing, and now we're locked into technology. And Zoom kind of came into one of the situations where teachers are out teaching and they were hacking into the Zoom meetings and throwing porn type stuff out there while teachers are trying to teach kindergarten classes. So Zoom had to jump in right quick, and they've added some new features of having to have passcodes in order to get into it. They also want for teachers to make sure that the kids are let in, or you let your students in into it to protect them. And I know just in June, sometime this month, they're going to be adding in a whole lot more security where it's going to be scrambled. So it's going to be a little bit harder to hack into it. But one of the programs out is a program called Thorn that deals with human trafficking on a national basis. It's actually put together by a bunch of movie actors. One of the predominant people is Demi, not Lovato, but Demi Moore.
Mm-hmm.
And she kind of seen some videos and stuff like that was taking place that had been published. And they have just actors that have come together, and they now have they hired people to actually program stuff to try to keep people safe. One of their new programs that was just released in 2018 was called Safer. And it's out on their website that has a lot of really good information. And it's kind of for like web-based platforms to kind of keep trafficking off out of it. And so that's another good program out there that's trying to protect us.
Okay. So the first one was Thorn, Thorn.
Uh-huh.
And then the next one is Saver, Saver.
Well, that's the program that they've created. So if you go out to thorn.org, they have a Safer, Safer, is a platform that kind of goes through and helps track down information like that. Like I said, Polaris project is the national reporting database. Of course, you can always contact the police department or CPS, especially if it's dealing with a kid. But Polaris project is the major one for the North America, for the United States to report to. Homeland Security has a campaign out there. It's called the Blue Campaign. That's a lot of information out there on even tracking they're always reinventing themselves, new things or trends that are taking place to be able to recognize human trafficking. And then we have a local group that deals with North Texas, and they're called, their name is Trafficking, or Traffic 911. And they deal with victims that are being trafficked here in the North Texas area.
Oh, good. Okay. Well, that's good information. Okay. This has been great.
There's there's a lot of other programs out there, but I just know I've never dealt specifically with Traffic 911. I just happen to follow them on Facebook and just to see some of the things that they're going through and what they can report to share with the community. But Traffic 911 is our North Texas human trafficking, one of the agencies.
Okay. Well, awesome. Angela, if you had to give any advice to parents out there that are just, you know, unaware or not knowing that this could happen to them, what advice would you give? Not to scare people, but kind of just, you know.
Well, I know I have two daughters, and just my research in this, and I just happen to be talking general to my family. It really just kind of opened their eyes that it's even taken place. And I know when my daughters are teenagers, and just even to walk into Walmart and they go, "Hey, I need to run to the restroom," or something like that, and they're like, I'm like, "Well, okay," and they're now to the point of, "No, Mom, I want you to come with me," and I'm like, they're still teenagers, and I'm like, "Well, okay," I'm glad that they're even thinking about it now. But one big thing is, I think, is to have an open dialogue with your kid, no matter what age they are. Make sure you know who their friends are, going to their events, just being active with your child. Another thing is kids always like to talk to you about their technology. Ask them, "Hey, what's some new apps that you just got loaded onto your phone? Show it around to me," and just be interested in that. And a lot of times kids want to talk to you because they think they can teach us adult things every once in a while. And
Right.
I think that's it. But it's a good way of not accusing them of what's going on, but them being able to feel like they can share with you and not being accusatory about it. Definitely, I would stay in touch with companies like Polaris and they have tons of information out there of new trends, and just make sure you know all of what's taking place out there in the world to help protect your kids. And that's not saying that you have to have that conversation with your kids, but I would definitely say you need to have a age appropriate conversation with your kids. Unfortunately, kids at 9 years old, they're already aware of that, and parents just don't realize that their kids have already been exposed.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. Do you recommend that you get your kids involved now to have these conversations, or would that be kind of awkward because now it's like I'm putting fear that they, every time they go out to Target or we go out to a baseball game or something, now they're worried about, well, what if I get kidnapped or something like that? So how would you approach the kids?
There are actually tools out online. One of them is called, well, for internet-wise, it's called NetSmart, and it's kind of a cartoonish way of how to stay safe online, which a lot of predators are luring you in through the internet. So it's a video-based education. Another one is Common Sense Media, and I know that's, as a teacher, I end up using Common Sense Media just to make sure the kids are aware of things to be safe. I taught one time of, hey, when you take a picture, just because you think you deleted it on the internet, it doesn't mean it's gone. It's sitting out in some database and some off-site location that, it can be accessed. And that kind of surprises the kids to be able to realize where their video or their online footprint actually goes in the world. They think that it's just on their phone. It's not just on their phone. So those are things that you can teach your kids to be aware of, just to be safe.
All right, one more time, because I know you said that it's Common Sense Media.
Common Sense Media.
And what was the other one?
NetSmart, NETSMARTZ.
Okay. Awesome.
But there's new information out there, especially with like I said, kids being now all of our education is pretty much online, some form of fashion. Just to make sure that they're aware of, just because we're now on using more technology, just to be smart about using our technology.
Okay, sweet. Well, I appreciate you. This went better than what I thought. I think that with things that are going on, you know, we need to start having these type of discussions and bringing people awareness up significantly, because that could be that one person that watched it that we saved their life, you know. And so it's just huge. So I thank you for your time. And if you want, do you have a website, or is your books on Amazon, or how can people get a hold if they want to purchase your book?
They can go out on Amazon and just Google Angela Moses. It's spelled weird with Angelia Moses. And I have two of my books are out there right now. This summer, I'm trying to get my third one done. So.
Awesome. Well, I can't wait to read it. I got to read the second one and the third one now, so I'm a little behind. So it was a pleasure. Again, I appreciate your time, taking the time to help me with this video.